Hello everybody, welcome back for another video. Hope you're doing well and now you're all having a great day. So this is the day after the entire Congress thing has happened. Happened yesterday afternoon, New York City time. I'm not in New York City, but that's the time when it happened. I actually managed to find the time to live stream it, to watch exactly what was going to happen. It was a bit of a mess. I'm going to read through some of the things, obviously, like I always do, and then I'll kind of tell you a bit more exactly what happens, especially for those who did not manage or get the chance to end up watching it. It was completely unexpected exactly what ended up happening. So to start things off, a U.S. lawmaker has called for a blanket ban on cryptocurrency buying. Congressman Brad Sherman is no stranger to controversial statements on this subject. Back in March, he called cryptocurrencies a crock. And during the Wednesday hearing of a subcommittee of the House of Representatives Financial Services Committee, he went so far as to advocate keeping Americans out of the market entirely. He said we should prohibit U.S. persons from buying or mining cryptocurrencies. The California Democrat, whose largest donor is credit card processor Allied Wallet, declared. He added that beyond cryptocurrencies being potentially used as a form of money in the future, it can currently be used by tax evaders and rogue states seeking to bypass U.S. sanctions. I'll get to that in 1 second. One of the panelists, Norbert Michael, director of the Center for Data Analysis at the Heritage Foundation, pushed back against the idea that criminal use should define cryptocurrencies as a whole. Michael told the subcommittee, and I do quote, he said, "Yes, it is true that criminals have used Bitcoin, but it's also true that criminals have used airplanes, computers, and automobiles. We shouldn't criminalize any of these instruments simply because criminals have used them," end quote. This guy, I do not know who he is. I actually haven't seen him before. I'm probably, maybe he was in the background of some other event. He was the actual MVP for this entire thing. Basically, the committee was around 3 or 4 people who sat in like the wooden benches over here, and then they had around 4 people sitting in front of them. It was a relatively empty room. It was very, very odd. And pretty much the 3 higher ups were looking down on the 4 people who were sitting down. Out of the 4 people, 2 of them were for, and 2 of them were for against cryptocurrencies. And what's his name? Yeah, Norbert Michael was one of the people who was, every single time that someone tried to jab cryptocurrencies or the crypto market, he made sure to completely step in, because one of the main arguments that they had during the entire thing was that cryptocurrencies are, if they could have said that cryptocurrencies are for evil people and evil geniuses and for the Green Goblin, I really think that they actually would have used those words. The entire time, all they kept on stating, at least for many of the congressmen who were talking, was that constantly that cryptocurrencies can and will be only used for illicit activities, that there are actually no normal people actually using it. You could feel it in their spirit as they spoke. They kept on constantly saying over and over, every single time that there was like a slightly positive word that anyone had mentioned about cryptocurrencies, it was constantly the thing that they said afterwards was that people cannot be trusted with these. We need to put a blanket ban over them. There were a lot of discussions as well as far as like U.S. sanctions and stuff like that. What surprised me, for a long time, people who are generally called like conspiracy theorists, if you want to call them that, they constantly say that typically when these meetings happen or something like that, they tend to happen in, dark, illicit places where congressmen talk about exactly how to keep the U.S. powerful. These people were openly talking about, they said they thought that cryptos needed to be banned and or, that U.S. citizens should be stopped from holding these because it risks, there's a threat to the U.S. economy from this. I don't know if it's actually in this article. I'll read it a bit further, but they were talking about how they were afraid if Europe at some point should create their own cryptocurrency or their own, government-backed cryptocurrency, that they would then be able to supersede the US dollar and then become the most powerful entity on the earth. And they literally outright said, no, we can't have this. So part of the discussion that they were also having was literally like, should we ban these because it could become more powerful than the US dollar? They were talking about the volatility in the prices. And one of the things, I don't remember if it was actually him or someone else. He was the complete opponent to the entire thing. People were asking if Bitcoin as it is used right now, and there's volatility in the price, what have you. They said 5 years from now, it's expected that the volatility could be reduced. And even 10 years from this moment right now, if Bitcoin becomes so stable and the price goes so high that people will then use it over the US dollar, this was actually one of their fears. I was expecting the entire talk to actually be, I guess I was more optimistic on the title, "The Future of Money," as a discussion for people to be talking about the benefits of this. But they were only afraid. And I was kind of shocked as I was watching it. It was maybe like an hour and a half long as they were talking. The entire thing that they were going on, the entire meeting was, should we be afraid of this? Should we ban this? What are the benefits of it for our country over other countries? And could crypto become so big that it eventually overshadows the entire financial market? Now, like, one of the main things is that there's a fear right now, not even just amongst the US government, but amongst other governments, is that as they did not pay attention to cryptocurrencies for so long, there was such a huge amount of time where they did not even think about cryptos, and cryptos became big. And now they're focusing on it, and they're trying to figure out exactly how much pressure to put onto the market to not suppress the prices, but kind of suppress the prices, because they're afraid if they don't pay attention to it for another 3 years, because they say, it's not a threat, whatever the case might be, at some point, Bitcoin could become so large that people then end up choose to invest in these coins rather than actually investing in the stock market. And then eventually they have no control because this has created its own ecosystem. It was incredibly interesting. I mean, you don't get to see people in government squirm a lot, but you could tell by their expressions, you could tell by how they were talking that they're actually afraid of digital protocols. And I don't know. It's very odd. You could tell, and I've said this before, and one of my main thoughts on this was, as big as crypto is and as big as crypto is expected to get, you can tell that the people who are the powers that be, whatever you want to call them, that they're actually afraid of losing their power. And it's such I don't mean to ramble on this, but this is a very important topic. The people who were discussing this, and the people who were for and against, they were relatively over the age of 65. That is not to say that all people over the age of 65 do not understand what's happening. But these people are very solidified in their ways. And you only get that by watching a discussion like this. You see exactly, not the fear in their eyes, but you can understand that they don't get why people would want to use something. One of their, they were talking, I don't remember exactly who it was. There were a number of people talking back and forth. Everyone had 5 minutes, just 5 minutes to kind of say their piece. They were discussing, why would people want to use cryptocurrencies over government currencies? They were saying it makes no sense. They said we've had this for a couple hundred years. I think one of the years that was quoted was like 1781. Since the US has had like paper money or something like that, or rather like a centralized paper currency. And they were saying, why would people choose, new digital currency that's online that they can't hold over something that the government controls? Do they not have faith in the government? And it was this mind-boggling event to listen to these people talk about something that they had no idea about. I'm going to try and read. Sorry, whatever. It's incredibly important. I was watching and I was texting my friend, the friend who I'm always talking about. And we were talking about how far removed they are from reality. They don't understand anything. It's the same exact thing. There are news reports you can watch when the first credit and debit cards came out, and banks and other institutions were like, why would anybody want to use plastic? You can have nice green money in your wallet. Why would anyone choose to swipe a plastic card over using paper money that they can hold? And it's like, now you see where we are now in the world, and you can just tap your card as you go to pay for groceries. It's okay, whatever. Anyway, continuing on. Though much of the hearing revolved around general monetary policy and history, the crypto-specific portions revealed a general opposition to the idea of a central bank digital currency. I'll get into this 1 second as well. To quickly recap, a number of central banks around the world have been investigating the idea of using some of the technology concepts behind Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies as part of the new holy digital money systems. The idea is that the tech can boost transparency and efficiency, but some of those looking into the subject have warned that it could also amplify the risk of bank runs, and several institutions have sworn off the idea entirely following their research. This was another major topic. They were talking about the idea of central bank-backed cryptocurrencies, and the argument was from those who were for and for who were against. The for were saying this is a great idea. We think that we need to do this. Pretty much that they could kind of get people into the idea of central bank digital currencies because it has the word blockchain attached to it. They kind of implied slightly that because the word blockchain would be somewhere in it, that people would end up trusting it more, even though it was run by a central bank. And they were saying the greatest part of all of this is that we would be able to control the complete supply. So should there be another banking crisis in some way, shape, or form, some type of meltdown, global financial meltdown, they said banks would then have the button at their disposal to be able to freeze all accounts at the exact same time, because one of the major issues that happened during the 2008 crisis was that people realized their money was in trouble. People ran to the banks, and in the US, at least, you can find documents on this, you can find videos on this. There were armed guards standing outside of banks telling people that no, you could not have access to your money. I think people were allowed in one at a time or something like that, and I think you were allowed to maybe take out $100 to go get some food if you needed something to eat. So they said, if this should happen again, central banks would have control over this. They would be able to hit a button that stops people from going to the banks and being able to take their money out until all the risk and all the problems have gone away. I hope you understand what that even means. They literally said when they try to destroy the financial system again, that banks would be able to hit a button and would stop you from being able to take your money out until they had found a way to circumvent all the problems and stuff like that. Pretty much go around and not even fix the problem, but just go around the issue that was happening. Another thing that they were afraid of, the people who were actually for it, were saying what I think I mentioned this earlier. They were talking about Europe being able to create, in other countries, they said even other countries being able to create their own central currency, and at some point being able to burn their tokens. They spoke about, what was it? They were talking a MasterCard or not MoneyGram, some credit card issuer sometime in the 70s or 80s. They issued their own credit card bills. I can't remember the exact term that they used. I remembered it earlier. Pretty much they said they were able to issue this, and they said people were actually hoarding them as they got them, the same way, people don't sell their cryptocurrencies. And they said the value of these tickets or pieces of paper that they gave to people were actually rising in value. And they said central banks would then be able to, put this money out there, be able to control the flow of it, because as of now, you cannot control the flow of paper money. They said, as we have this money out there, as it's on just people's phones or people's whatever, it's all digital, we'd be able to hit a button, stop people from using it, and or hit a button and bring some of it back to us. And they also said that they'd be able to burn it, as in, their Tron is burning their tokens, XRP burns their tokens, and they said we'd be able to do the exact same thing, and this would help to raise the value of our currency against other countries. But they said other countries would be able to do this to us, and they would be able to knock out the US dollar accordingly, just because they're able to do this. This was the main argument that they had for and against them. As far as the people who were like, no, we should not have them, it was literally exactly, they mimicked what they said. That guy up here, what's your name? Norbert Michael. He literally said, no, we should not have these because banks would be able to control other people's money. He said people have lost trust in centralized authorities simply because they have done so much wrong to people over such a long amount of time. If we had a centralized banking authority or any type of centralized system that was actually good and for the people and didn't try to manipulate people and or change rates or do things accordingly to only preserve the wealth of the wealthiest people in the entire country, more so, there would be no problem. People would not have an issue with centralized entities. But as of now, we all know exactly how central banks and things like that work. I mean, I not even that I didn't mean to ramble on. There was so much happening in this. If you have a chance to actually watch it, I don't know exactly how you'll be able to find it. I'm pretty sure if you maybe Google the Future of Money live stream, someone may have even uploaded it to YouTube at this point. It was incredibly odd to see what was happening with these people, how they were talking. some of the things they were saying, people joke about the things that people, that people in government say in private. They were out there. They were saying, we don't want these things. And he was calling for a complete ban on it because he said he didn't understand why people would want to use something that wasn't controlled by government. He said, people trust governments. Why would anybody want to be using these things? It was just completely out there. And this is only the first thing that I have to talk about. So this lets you know that there were a lot of really crazy things that were happening during all of yesterday, because there were a lot other meetings and stuff that ended up taking place. So this is another thing that actually ended up happening. Witnesses before the U.S. House of Agriculture, this was another meeting that happened yesterday, committee at a public hearing on July 18th, that was yesterday, were unanimous in their view that digital assets complicate the hard and fast distinctions of existing regulatory frameworks. The hearing was chaired by Texas U.S. Representative Michael Conaway, who convened 6 eminent witnesses to give testimony. Former Goldman Sachs partner and U.S. government regulator Gary Gensler, Andreessen Horowitz managing partner Scott Cooper, the CFTC's Daniel, I don't have to read through all the names, it's not really that important. A key takeaway from the hearing was that a given digital asset may shift its regulatory status as it transitions from one context to another, giving the fluidity of the crypto ecosystem. I'll get into this in like half a second. Both Gensler and Fairfield argued that when a digital token is marketed as a pre-functional moment in its development, i.e. during an ICO, then the sale is judged as an investment contract and thus a security to be regulated by the SEC. Critically, however, crypto tokens may cease to be securities once they have been used in a decentralized network as a utility token, as, for example, in the case of Ethereum. For those who do not know, Ethereum was listed as a security because it had an ICO, but they said because of the way that Ethereum is used now, it is therefore no longer a security. This means that a digital asset may at one point be an SEC regulated security, only to later become a commodity of relevance of the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, or the CFTC. As Gorfine outlined, the CFTC does not generally exercise direct oversight of the underlying commodity market themselves, but rather regulates derivatives such as futures or swaps markets. So one of the main arguments, not even arguments, one of the things that a lot of US and world regulators are having right now, this is why I believe that a number of countries, I think it's only like 2 or 3 or 4 at the moment, have actually listed cryptocurrencies as legal tender and or money that can be used on a daily basis, is because, guys, it makes me annoyed that I even have to say this. I'm almost certain at this point, just because of what happened yesterday, literally a 2-3 hour span of everything that was actually going on, I'm convinced that the US is, unless I missed something while watching all of these things, that the US is going to be left behind. I think the people who are making the rules in the US are so afraid of cryptocurrencies without learning more about them. Granted, I'm sure they're learning a thing or two. I think that the rules that are going to be solidified for the US, at least for the next couple of years when they do release regulatory blah, 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 will hamper innovation of cryptocurrencies within the United States, just from everything that I was hearing. So part of the problem that they're having is that for some reason in the US, crypto can swap between multiple regulatory guidelines or issuances, whatever you want to call them, as far as the CFTC, the SEC, and other places that could, potentially regulate them simply because of how they are made. They're already having a problem with coins that are privacy-based. They're having a problem with ICOs. The new thing on the block as well is, I believe it's called an STO, security token offerings. There was an not IPOs. There's some other variation of ICO out there as well that's also causing a problem. And then they're also having an issue where things are securities, but because of how platforms on the crypto network can become decentralized, that pretty much they'll then have. So what it comes down to is that they're afraid of making laws onto something because they're afraid of hampering innovation. They're afraid of it taking over the existing system that they have right now. And they're afraid of putting something into a category and then a couple months later it having to change the category, even though it's written in stone, if you will, because of how crypto can change. They're really perplexed. And I mean, this is why I said this before. I'm almost certain that the countries that are going to prevail in all of this are the warmest countries in the entire world. Even though Puerto Rico is not a country, it's a piece of the United States. The warmer countries, such as Malta and other places as well, they're having a really good time steering in all of these crypto companies because they understand, you can tamper innovation. The fact that there's so many people saying that crypto is the future and they're trying to stop it and or heavily regulate it is such a huge mistake. There's still no time frame as to when we're going to get exact verification from the US. It's supposed to be in July. We're supposed to hear something from the G20. There's something happening this weekend in, I want to say Belize, Buenos Aires, and I think it starts with a B. On the 20th and 21st of July, I'm pretty sure you can Google it. Like Google July 20, 21st, crypto meeting or something like that. G20, yes, G20. Something's supposed to happen between all these countries where I think this is the moment that we're finally going to have proper regulatory clarity on everything that is actually going on because they are out there. And I mean, I honestly feel bad for them because, like, I think I said this before in a video like a month or two ago, you have to, a slight bit of sympathy for people who've been in power for so long, and then somebody creates a digital protocol 9 years ago, and this digital protocol is literally at the brink of bringing these, bringing them to, not to tears. You kind of understand what I'm saying. They're struggling to understand because they've been in power for so long that they're calling for a ban on something that they don't understand because they're afraid of losing their power. It is incredibly interesting, and there's still a lot more to talk about. So, Jerome Powell, chairman of the U.S. Federal Reserve, had some harsh words for cryptocurrencies during an appearance before the U.S. Congress. This, I believe, ties into the exact same thing that we were talking about the first thing. Speaking to the House Federal Services Committee, the head of the U.S. Central Bank said Wednesday that cryptocurrencies have no intrinsic value and presented severe risks to investors. As CNBC reported, part of his concern seemingly stems from the apparent crypto bubble. He said that relatively unsophisticated investors, that's me and you, see the asset go up in price and they think this is great, I'll buy this. In fact, there is no promise of that. They tried their hardest. I mean, if you want to throw mud in somebody's face, call them unsophisticated. They pretty much said that anyone who is not an institutional investor, that is people who have 50 million, 100 million, potentially $500 million to invest, that we are unsophisticated and we see the rise in price in cryptocurrencies and we literally throw our money at it because we don't know any better. We're all kids who just kind of, run to the flashing lights. He said, and I do quote, "It's not really a currency. We're not looking at this as something that should be doing. Mainly, I have concerns. If you think about what currencies do, they're supposed to be means of payment and a store of value, basically, and cryptocurrencies are not used very much in payment. And in terms of the store of value, if you look at the volatility, it's just not there," end quote. They are very challenging because cryptocurrencies are great if you're trying to hide or launder money. We have to be very conscious of that, he said. That being said, though there are investors and consumer protection laws, Powell said that cryptocurrency market isn't big enough to threaten financial stability, and therefore the Fed isn't seeking to regulate it, according to Bloomberg. One of the things, I don't know if they played tic-tac-toe and just found these words before they got to talking about everything that was happening. We've heard the old saying, crypto's for money laundering, crypto's for this. We had someone who said a while ago, it wasn't Warren Buffett, no, it definitely wasn't Warren Buffett, who said that the only people who are using crypto are people who buy drugs, who deal drugs, and who buy ladies of the night. And they were pretty adamant on this. And the entire thing that's going around now, I think I think there's been a shift in what they can and cannot say when it comes to everything that's happening with cryptocurrencies right now. Because there are a lot of people, we know the government and politicians are more or less controlled by people who have money. This is, you can watch documentaries on this. You can find papers about this. We know this as a fact. So like I said, there's only so much that they can kind of say. And I think the last thing that they are actually able to say is that money laundering is a major problem in the cryptocurrency space. They were talking about why should we allow crypto if other countries, Think about this. They said, why should we allow crypto if other countries also have access to it? Because this gives other countries a way to supersede not only the US dollar, but U.S. sovereignty. And also, if other countries end up getting rich off of this, what's to stop them from destroying the U.S.? It was completely insane. They were saying that with cryptocurrencies, they wouldn't be able to track other countries, how they're financing things. And they kept on saying that this could be used for illicit trade. This could be used for other countries who are on the terrorism list. It's like they have no idea what crypto could actually be used for. Even crypto aside, just blockchain. What the idea of a blockchain could be used for in order to make sure. I was watching a documentary. They were talking about why they love blockchain, and they were saying when it comes to finance and financial institutions, money can be thrown around as it is right now. Things can be hidden on the Cayman Islands and stuff. They said, how great would it be if we have a financial crisis and everything is literally written on the blockchain, and we can say, this bank is at fault, this bank is at fault, and the bank can go, well, we didn't do it. And they go, no, well, actually on, July 20th at this time, this person logged into this so-and-so, and we see it on the blockchain. Every other person in the entire world has access to this blockchain, and they can see that you did this illicit trade. You are the reason for the economy falling down. This was your fault. The issue that they all seem to have is, how do we stop the terrorists? How do we stop drug dealers? That's why I said the other guy was a complete MVP when he said, people use airplanes and computers and automobiles in illicit activities as well. Should we also then be banning all of these things simply because, bad people do bad things with these? I know I'm a little hyped right now. Sorry about that. I'm going to try and calm myself down. It's really, there is definitely I want to say a generational and the wealth gap is showing its face in all of this. As of now, even experts say and analysts believe that cryptocurrencies will eventually prevail. We don't know if it's going to be XRP. We don't know if it's going to be even Bitcoin, but it's still the idea that one coin, or at least a bunch of them, that crypto will end up prevailing as time goes on. And it's still believed that Bitcoin is going to hit $1 million. It may not seem so right now, but that Bitcoin will end up being, one of the largest currencies in the entire world. You guys know how I feel about Bitcoin, but at this point, I'm kind of rooting for the protocol. I want like not an I told you so moment, but I want what's happening with credit and debit cards as opposed to us using gold and silver and rocks and seashells. I kind of want that same exact thing to happen for crypto, because I don't know. Whatever. I'm gonna kind of move on from this topic as best I can. I think there's actually one other part. No, actually, no. It's just this. So this says that the U.S. Congress struck a positive tone. It really didn't. There was no one saying, okay, let's ban this. But there also wasn't anybody saying, okay, let's definitely integrate this. If you actually look at the markets the way that they are right now, they're actually up a tiny bit, but we're still in the red. I think Stellar actually jumped up 30% yesterday because of, I don't know if it was hype. Who knows exactly what it was. I think a lot of the coins that are supposed to be listed on Coinbase have actually jumped up. It's Stellar, Cardano, not Dash. Maybe the other ones are also down. Yeah, 0x is also down. The point is, after the hearing, the prices kind of dropped a tiny bit. I think a lot of people were expecting this meeting to be like for the U.S. government to kind of take off their robes and pretty much say, we are going to burn every U.S. dollar and Bitcoin is now the new reserve currency. I was kind of expecting not what happened, but I was expecting, something kind of along the lines of it where people were more just asking questions. Not so much that we should ban it. I think they said that we're actually going to have a lot more of these discussions actually going on. I don't know when the next ones were. I think at the end of the meeting, the guy said we have people at the meeting have 5 more days to issue a not a reprisal. I can't remember the exact word that he used, but I'm pretty sure we're going to have a lot more meetings like this. I don't know how significant these meetings will be. I think the meeting this weekend between actual G20 countries making laws will actually probably be a bit more significant to the cryptocurrency space. But I think a lot of the push up that we've seen in price over here, I'm not one for technical analysis, but on the non-technical side, I think this was literally everybody waiting for some type of good news from the meeting that we had. The market is still, Bitcoin was actually down around a couple percent. It's actually trying to go back up, so is the rest of the market. Well, everyone follows Bitcoin's price. It's pretty much because I think as we are nearing the weekend, I think we are getting closer to the CFTC's, not CFTC, the G20's meeting, what have you. Anyway, I'm going to move on from this topic. I'm sure you guys got it after everything that I've been saying. But I think the market is still very optimistic. I don't think that I think we're in, like a baby bull period, if you will. I think everybody is waiting for the prices to go back up. I think we're just waiting for some type of really good news. And we've been waiting for this regulatory clarity, as it were, for quite some time. But definitely this meeting that happened between Congress and also, I believe, the people in agriculture was not what we needed. So this is another thing that actually ended up happening. The director of the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, CFTC, FinTech Initiative, cautioned against what he called hasty regulatory pronouncements during a congressional hearing on Wednesday. The remarks from Daniel Gorfine, director of Lab CFTC, were directed towards members of the U.S. House Committee on Agriculture, which, as reported by CoinDesk, sought testimony on the issue of cryptocurrencies and digital assets. Alongside Gorfine were former JP Morgan blockchain-led Amber Baldet, former CFTC chair Gary Gensler, and A16Z manager, I have no idea what that is, partner Scott Kupor. Gorfine framed his remarks from the perspective that many different things can be considered commodities, but not all of them would warrant attention from U.S. regulators. He said, "It's only when we start to see the rise of futures or swaps products built on these commodities that we kind of have direct oversight," he remarked, going on to state, and I do quote, "We all have the shared goal to bring clarity and certainty to the market, but we also need to make sure that we are thoughtful in our approach and do not steer or impede the development of this area of innovation. Indeed, while some may ask or seek the immediate establishment of bright lines, the reality is that hasty regulatory pronouncements are likely to miss the mark, have unintended consequences, or fail to capture important nuance regarding the structure of new products or models," end quote. This is very true. He's relatively young. This is why I said there's a bit of an age gap. I understand that people in the government may not be completely for losing all their power or being usurped in what they do. But this has been echoed many times, and I think this may be a warning. We've heard a lot of times, a lot of people in the government, the U.S. government especially, have been saying, don't be hasty on these rules. Take your time. Look into it. Other people have been saying, look at what other countries are doing. Maybe we should take a book from South Korea or Japan in, some type of light regulatory touch. I think a lot of these people have been in closed off meetings with other people who they know are higher ups, and they probably have been telling them that they plan on doing something hasty, or they're afraid of what cryptocurrencies could do to them. And this is why I think we're kind of constantly hearing, these whispers from people saying, take your time when it comes to regulation. I am, if the US doesn't do something hasty and kind of crazy, I would be completely shocked, because at this moment, I really, really think the US is gonna do something. They're gonna create some kind of law that 50 pages of laws. On the 47th page, on the 16th paragraph, there's going to be something written that is going to hamper the innovation in the US space. And we're going to start hearing a lot of other news stories about this crypto company is moving to Canada. This one's moving to Mexico. This one's moving here. This one's moving there. Because it's just a strange feeling that I have deep inside of my bones. I have a feeling that something not good. I think it'll be okay, but I think they're going to squeeze a bit harder than they actually should. India is in the news today On the 20th of July, the Supreme Court of India will hold a hearing regarding the state of cryptocurrencies in the country. It is a decisive date for the local crypto industry that has been significantly suppressed in the past month by the RBI, or the Reserve Bank of India. Ban on all banking dealings with crypto-related businesses. The hope for an overview of the hardline approach lives on. However, as last week a report citing anonymous sources in the government suggested that cryptocurrencies might be viewed as commodities in the future, and hence become regulated by relevant authorities rather than remain mostly banned. Not going to really read exactly when they were banning and all blah, 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 blah. My thinking is, or has been for quite some time, if you want to ban something, you kind of do it. If you're really terrified of something, you ban it immediately. I'm pretty sure that people have been whispering in their ears not to do it, or to actually look into it. One of the main things that I'm going to say, I spoke about this in the other video, and I'm literally not going to dive deep into this today, is that we had, who was it? It was Brad Garlinghouse from the people from Ripple. He said a couple of weeks ago that he is certain that India will undo their ban. And I said, or I think, he would be an idiot to say something like this unless he has some type of, not insider information, but unless he had been talking with the government themselves. You don't say that an entire country, or that you expect an entire country to unban cryptocurrencies, especially when you have opened up an office in India, and you've been talking, and you had one of your members proclaim that Ripple is actually partnered with 50 to 80% of all the banks in the country. It's tomorrow. We finally, hopefully, get what we had last week is what we had news about India, and they said no, we're going to keep the ban. We've had this every 6 or 7 weeks that the country has kind of said that they're going to have a major meeting, and then nothing comes from it. And I've seen people in the comment section below who are from India who get really upset. I don't know exactly how corrupt people or government leaders in the country are, but I've seen how angry, it's one thing to hamper innovation. It's another thing to constantly drag people along. If you are going to ban it, ban it. Let it be done. Let people who are in India find other ways to then get cryptocurrencies. Let them, if they want to, even, I don't know if you can go across the border. I don't know how India really works. If you're going to ban it, let's move on. If you're not going to ban it, give us the answers that we kind of need so that we can move on with our lives. There are a lot of people who are investing in cryptocurrencies. We don't need this kind of tug around from countries. It appears that tomorrow, that July 20th will be the date for all of this to possibly end. This still lines with the G20 countries talking about that they would give proper clarity in July. We are still in July. Tomorrow's July 20th. Let's hope that India gets some very good news. I'm going to assume, I don't think there will be a ban. I assume that things will kind of be regulated the same as other countries. I assume we're going to have a type of security commodity type situation, which is still totally fine. Just get it over with. But the market could be waiting for answers from this, because India is, if you did not know, a very large country. And even though there are a lot of people, I was reading something, who may not be major players in the cryptocurrency space. They may only have, 20, 30, 40 US dollars equivalent of cryptocurrency, but this adds up when you go into having 1 billion people who are in the country. Anyway, let's move on. Last up, this is a very intense video. Sorry. Thank you very much for those who have almost said stuck around, who are still here. I know this is a very lengthy video, but there's a lot. We are in the middle of something very significant in the cryptocurrency space, so all of this pretty much has to be said. On this topic, peer-to-peer Bitcoin exchange Paxville is doubling down on developing markets. Revealed recently to CoinDesk, the startup plans to open an office in hyperinflation-ridden Venezuela in September and release an Android app, its first for mobile devices, in October. According to Paxville co-founder Ray Youssef, the reason for both moves is that the exchange use is surging in developing nations where mobile phones are abundant and cheap, but access to crypto remains scarce. I'll get back to that in 1 second as well. Youssef told CoinDesk, and I do quote, underbanked, unbanked, or people in a desperate situation, such as with market inflation. Those are markets where Paxville can add the most value and where Bitcoin actually adds the most value for people. End quote. Africa, the continent with the highest rate of unbanked adults, according to a 2010 study by McKinsey, is Paxville's biggest market, he said. According to Paxville's internal data, June saw 772,000 Bitcoin trades averaging $64 each in Nigeria and 50,000 Bitcoin trades in Ghana averaging $56 each. All told, Paxville has 2 million users. The company with 65 employees collects a 1% fee from the sellers on the trade. Okay, not super important. They kind of go and say, hey, not really important. What's important here is that we're at a point in the cryptocurrency world where everything is specifically focusing on institutional investors. Like I told you, this if cryptocurrency exchanges could take a gigantic broom and sweep us away with it, I think we would have been swept away a long time ago. All they care about right now is institutional investors. Why? One of the reasons, slight segue, why I think IOTA will be a very big coin is because they're focusing on a market that other people aren't focusing on. They're focusing on the European market right now, as far as integrating into technology and gadgets and what have you. I think the companies that are going to make it in the long term are companies that are trying to get access to people in India and South America and parts of Asia that do not have access to money. This is why I'm also very bullish on Omise Go, because this is exactly what they plan on doing. There are so many people in these countries who do not have access to any type of finance. I'm sure you've heard the term the unbanked. If you have the time, like I always say, do your own research. Watch documentaries on unbanked people in Africa or Asia or in South America who literally, they have no access to banks because banks only focus or give attention to people who have money. You don't want to give a bank account to someone who has maybe $10, $15. They see no point in them. So we have billions of people on this planet who have no access to their own money. They literally keep money under their mattress, inside of holes that they have dug out. It sounds insane in 2018, especially if you're listening to me on a computer or listening to me on a Mac or an Asus or Windows or a Samsung device. People do live this way. So the fact that there is even one company, I'm sure there are more, that is trying to get access to these people, especially for people in India, this is incredibly significant. Just the fact that there were in June alone, 772,000 Bitcoin transactions, even for $64. I was watching a documentary a day or two ago. They were talking about people in South Africa, how there's like an extreme amount of poverty in South Africa. And they were talking about how there are a number of people who actually live on around $100 a month. How eventful Bitcoin will be for their lives. There was a documentary, once again, I watch a lot of documentaries on people who live in India and who got into Bitcoin when it was pennies. There are a lot of people in India who do not have a lot of money. They were saying there are actually a lot of women in India who actually, I forgot what they do. They do something on plantations and fields and stuff like that. And they actually pool their money together, groups of like 8-9 women, to get like 1 gram pieces of gold coins, very tiny fractions of gold coins, and they save all these things up so that when their kids get married, they have gold to give them. They have all this other stuff. There was some family, they took fractions of their gold worth about, no more than $15, $16, $17. They put it into cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, when the price was extremely low, and they have millions of dollars now because of this. And it leads me to believe that we're going to enter a world. This is why I keep telling so many people, like I said, I can't tell you what to do with your money, but if you have just $100 that you don't need to keep into the cryptocurrency market, leave it there. No one knew what was going to happen to Bitcoin and Bitcoin's price, or even Ethereum. If you had put $100 into Ethereum, where you would be with money right now when it was $8 last year. I can't find the one word that I'm trying to look for. It's not instrumental. How much of an impact this is going to have on these people's lives in these developing countries when you focus on these people who have hyperinflation destroying their money supply, who are maybe only making 150 euros per month that they live off of. If they can take 1 or 2 euros or dollars and put it into cryptocurrencies, even if it's something as small as like $64, how much of an impact this is going to have into their lives. It's widely believed that within the next 10 years, we're going to see a massive explosion of wealth in these countries, not even just from cryptocurrencies, because of the rise of computing. By 2020, it's believed that the cost of one microchip will cost around 1 cent. This will allow people in developing countries to have access to computers that literally cost them around $20 US. Think of how absolutely insane that is, and how much of a different world that we're going to have when people then have access to the internet, when people have access to cryptocurrencies. Just having access to the internet alone allows you to have access to Coinbase, all these other websites, to be able to buy fractions of all these coins. I'm rambling on once again. You can tell I'm a bit passionate about this. One of my main things in life is I love helping people. I love the idea of people who are down and out, who don't have a lot of money, to be able to imagine if you had put $100 in Bitcoin, what was it, in 2010, how rich you would be. The fact that there are billions of people on this planet who do not have access to money, who are living in poverty, who are struggling to help their family, if they can even put a tiny bit of money into these cryptocurrencies, when their local currency is completely destroyed in even 5 or 10 years, these people can even have a net worth of $20,000, $30,000. That may not seem like a huge amount to people who live in Europe or America, because we know the cost of a house is like $39 billion right now because of how expensive everything is. But imagine how much this is going to change their lives. I do not know Paxville. This is not an advertisement for them. I promise you that. I'm very dedicated to helping people who are trying to secure wealth or grow wealth for the next generation. And I think things like this are absolutely amazing. I'm very interested to see, I don't know if I'll still have this channel in about 10 years, but if people 10 years from now, how the world will have changed in developing, especially developing markets, because of cryptocurrencies. How many more people will enter the middle class, and how many more people will be better off because of these decentralized currencies that they wouldn't have had access to 10 years ago because we didn't have them. I'm exhausted. Like I said, if you made it this far, you actually deserve an award. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I know it was, like I said, rather lengthy, but there's a lot that was going on. The entire meeting yesterday, the meetings that happened yesterday were completely insane. I'm going to assume this weekend as well, there's going to be a lot of news. I'm going to try. I don't know if it's going to be live streamed. I assume it's going to be multiple meetings that are going to be happening on this event between the G20, but I'm sure there's going to be tons of news, and the market is definitely going to be waiting. I'm still optimistic. No country from the G20 so far has said that they are going to ban cryptocurrencies. Always keep that in mind. Even if they say that everything is a security, don't fret, because that means that they can just be traded the normal way, the same as stocks and bonds. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys have a great day, morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, wherever you might be. I'm completely exhausted. I have not had breakfast or lunch. You did not need to know that, but I am quite hungry. Thank you once again for all of your support, and I will talk to you all soon. See you.